Welcome back to session number 2 of Becoming a Person of Influence. Now, last week, if you joined me, we talked about the intro to the session. Actually, it was the very first video blog that I've ever done. So hopefully I'll improve this process, make it more enjoyable for you. But I promise you that the content that I'm going to give you is actually going to add some tremendous value to you. So stick with me. We're going to learn some things today. And every time I do this, I learn something myself. So I'm excited about it. I hope you are too. But I won't keep you a long time, but I will keep you for a good time. We're going to learn some great things today. Anyway, we talked about this lessons come from Jim Dornan's and John Maxwell's teaching, Learning to Become a Person of Influence. Now, last week we talked about what influence is, and we talked about what leadership is. And many times people misunderstand leadership, and they associate leadership as a title or a position. And sure, those leadership positions do have influence, but that's not what makes a leader a leader. A leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And John said before that if you think you're a leader and you look behind you and no one's following, then you're only taking a walk. And that's so true. We can have position and title, but if we don't move people into action, then how strong is our influence? Now, influencers are anybody who has a relationship with anybody has some type of influence, good or bad. And the thing about influence is many times we're not aware of how we're influencing others. Our intentions are always good, and we measure ourselves by our intentions, but most other people measure us by our actions. And so they even measure our motives by our actions, and sometimes they're way off base because we really want to do well, we want to help people, but some of the things we don't know are causing us problems. So John wrote this book after the intro in 10 sessions, and he used the word influence as an acronym. So today's lesson is actually lesson number 1, and it deals with the letter I, which is integrity. What is integrity? Well, that sounds pretty simple, doesn't it? I always thought of just being honest, doing what you say you're going to do. And it goes a little deeper than that, because I think that sometimes we look at honesty as something we intend to do, but sometimes we're not necessarily completely honest with ourselves, and therefore other people see cracks or flaws in us and see us as people not having integrity. One of the best definitions I've ever heard come from Brandon Boggs, and he was one of my leadership classes some time back, just before he went to college, and we were asking for a definition of integrity, and he gave me the best one I've ever heard. He said, think about integrity in terms of a ship. He said, now take a ship that's getting ready to go on the ocean, that's carrying a lot of cargo and a lot of people. He says, that ship has to be checked out on a regular basis to check for cracks and flaws, bolts or something that's come loose in there. He said something that would cause a breach in that ship, which could cause that entire ship to go down. I thought, wow, what if we looked at our lives like that? Do we look at every area of our life, in our relationships with our family, relationships with our peer group, relationships with those we answer to, and our relationships with those that answer to us? If we look at it in those terms, are we the same person all the time? Do we treat our workers like family and our family like workers? If we're wearing different faces in those different places, then we've got some cracks in our character and in our integrity. So I've seen people who will treat people in the street great, but treat their family just any way because they can. And that's a flaw that's going to actually leak out later. It's going to cause us some big problems. That's that crack in the hull that's going to cause us to crash and maybe sink our ship with the people we're trying to influence. So it was a great definition. All right, next I want to ask you some questions. And actually, I'm going to post these questions. I'm not going to ask them right here. I'm going to post these questions on my website and on my Facebook page, so you can go back and ask yourself these 10 questions to measure your own integrity. Because, when we get honest with ourselves, we're the only ones who can really fix any kind of problems we might have. But we got to be aware of those problems. And sometimes it's just a matter of asking ourselves these questions. But integrity is the fundamental characteristic to have trust. And if we don't have trust, we don't have anything, do we? Let me tell you a little story about my nephew that really helped me to illustrate what trust is like. John said before that trust is like pocket change. Once you spend all your change, you're out of business. And I used this illustration on my nephew one day, and he had come to me for some work. He was having a hard time getting a job, and I'd hired him to do some work around the home, and he showed up late the very first day. The second day, he showed up a few minutes late again. And finally, on the third day, when he came, I sent him home. I said, don't come back until you're on time. Well, he didn't understand right at the moment what I was trying to teach him. But he got there on time, and he was there on time the rest of the week. I said, any day you're not on time this week, I'm going to send you home. So after a few days, we sat down in a driveway, and he did a really good job on some of the work that I'd asked him to do. And he asked me, he said, Uncle David, he said, why won't the rest of my family help me? And I knew he'd had some dealings in the back, in his past, that had caused him some problems, some trust issues, some major, some little, but they were all trust issues. And I asked him, I said, why do you think they don't trust you? And he said, well, maybe I haven't been completely honest most of the time. And I said, well, so I got in my pocket and I pulled out some change. And I said, when you showed up to work late the other day, I said, you spent a little bit of that trust with me, and I threw it into the driveway, the coin. I said, and yesterday you were late, the second day you were late again. I said, you spent some more of that change. I said, but that's the same way with everybody. I said, when you're not honest with them, I said, and over a period of time, you spend that change. And I said, pretty soon you're out of change. And I showed him my hand, and I showed him all the change on the ground. He asked me, he said, but how do I get that change and get that trust back? I said, well, actually this week you've been on time a few days. I said, you put some of that change back right here. I said, you did what I asked you to do. I said, every time you do what you say you're going to do and agree to do, you earn that trust back and you earn that change back. And I said, pretty soon your pocket's full of trust again. I said, but you spend it every time that you're dishonest. And every time you do what's right, you're putting change in that pocket. So that when you do have a problem, people don't judge you as being dishonest. They just judge you as a person who's honest, who's having some problems. It's a powerful illustration, great illustration. Maybe something you can use for yourself sometime to illustrate that change or that integrity. So let me ask you this, though. There are some issues that leaders and influencers have, and this are 4 of them. So does my organization have good written values? If you are a leader, do you have those values clearly defined and written out, and do you live by those values? Now, if you're following people, or if you're following leaders that do have core values and they have values written and declared, do they live by them? What do you do if they don't? That's where it gets sticky. For you to have integrity, you either have to confront those who are not living by those values, but most importantly, you do have to live by those values whether other people are not, because you can only answer for you. So that's an integrity issue. Ask yourself this: do I place the interest of other people ahead of my own agenda and interest? Now, every one of us have an agenda. Everybody's trying to accomplish something. I have a clear written purpose statement, mission statement for my life. So I've got a goal, and I have to be careful not to try to manipulate people into accomplishing what I want them to do. I have to make sure that I'm putting their agenda at least on the equal footing with mine, so that we can have a win-win. But we all have to ask ourselves this: why am I doing what I'm doing? Why am I trying to influence this person? Is it for me? Is it for their better benefit? Is it always about me? And last but not least, I think this is very important. Are you accountable to someone? Do you have someone in your life that you trust with your life, that you will allow to tell you about your integrity issues and the behaviors that they see? Will you let them speak into your life so that you can hear it and become aware of the problems that maybe you're not even aware of? I think it's critical that we have someone like that in our life that we allow and give permission to speak into our life. Well, that's it for today. There's a lot in that chapter. Like I said, I'm going to post those 10 questions you get access to so that you can ask yourself these. Spend some time, reflect on it. Get an accountability partner to help you work through the answers and see if you think you're on target. Because sometimes our intentions are great, but sometimes our mind's clouded because of our intentions. We never intend to do bad, but sometimes our behaviors are showing something else. So in the meantime, until next time, think about your integrity, be a person of integrity, and we'll see you next time. And we're going to study a leader nurtures other people. Thank you. Have a great day. Go to GiantSlayerConsultants.com or Dave Beavers on Facebook. and get those questions. Subscribe to my newsletter, to my YouTube channel. You'll get this every week. Thank you. Have a great week.